Uh, were the people able to hear me for the other slides? I apologize. I may have had this muted.
Yes, no, you were good. I just wanted to eliminate the background chatter from all the other folks.
Okay. Why is HPM dues, why are we investing money and time and effort in it? Well, obviously, if it wasn't useful in some way to the warfighter, the peacekeepers, we would not be doing that. One of the major things that high-power microwave directed energy weapons brings to the table is and directed energy in general, is that it's able to engage targets at the speed of light. That means instantaneous fly out, no need for lead angles, and that type of thing that you have to worry about with kinetic energy weapons. However, it must be emphasized that even though the engagement can be at the speed of light, the effect may not be instantaneous. It may be necessary to dwell on the target for seconds to minutes, depending upon what the application is. The other important thing about RF-directed energy weapons is that you could produce, to some extent, scalable effects, from temporary upset to permanent damage based on the target and how far away the source is from the target. As a result, you've got the potential to have a scalable type or tunable target effects. The most important part, and the reason primarily that people are interested in this technology, is that a directed energy weapon provides a very deep magazine to a warfighter with relatively unlimited number of low-cost shots, DE pulses. The basic thing that you need is to have fuel for the platform that the HPM weapon is on, and as long as that fuel and electrical power remain, then you can keep engaging targets. This greatly reduces logistics and the associated cost of having, and also the concern about you losing all of your weapons and have to reload. Another important part about HPM is because you're talking about a relatively wide beam, this provides a very high probability of hit on a target that is compared to either a kinetic energy weapon or a laser, where you're going to need to be able to have a high probability of hit in order to have the effect. It also allows you for plausible deniability. Since electromagnetic energy cannot be seen, cannot be felt, cannot be tasted, it can be felt in a certain way, it's important that you could basically actually cause an adversary to have electronic failure and not immediately be able to figure out what that is. Typically, we talk about electromagnetic waves being used against electronic weapons, such as sensors and communication systems and all of that. Its operation is similar to a radar, however, it's much higher peak power, as I mentioned. So at least the operation and maintenance, in theory, can be along the lines of someone who is skilled as a radar technician and does not necessarily require a separate military operational specialty. Now, most of the things we've talked about have been electronic so far, but the other thing that we need to discuss is the fact that depending upon what frequency the HPM do is, as long as it's relatively low frequency, below 35 gigahertz, it's typically non-lethal to humans unless there's long exposure times. What we know as far as safety levels and all go is based on the IEEE RF radiation safety standards, which concerns the amount of not only the amount of average power, but the amount of dwell time. So generally speaking, since the pulses are very short and the rep rates are relatively small, the average power is not that high unless you have a long dwell time. On the other hand, as you may have heard, there's the U.S. Air Force Research Lab developed a system called the Area Denial System that the Joint Non-Lethal Weapons Directorate sponsored and carried forth. And that's a system that uses millimeter waves, roughly at 95 gigahertz. And they discovered that at 95 gigahertz, the energy can actually penetrate the skin and stimulate the nerves underneath the skin to give the simulation of a burn, of actually heating. As a result, that provides a way to control humans in a non-lethal way, because seems to be a significant difference between the threshold required to cause the intense pain and that for human damage. So this allows people, the warfighter and peacekeepers, to now have a weapon system that can actually radiate personnel to keep them back or to keep them from a certain area, such as protecting a high-value asset. And that pain will go away if they back off or if the energy is turned off. That's very important because that's a new application that appears to be of great interest, not only to the United States, but to our allies and unfortunately to our adversaries also. The last thing I'll say about